Or Yissachar, welcome to this show. You are an expert on Iranian-Israeli relations and the situation in Iran. Could you please give us a brief description of you and of your organization?
Right, so IDSF is Israel's Defense and Security Forum. It's a movement that comprises already 50,000 members and was founded by senior officials in reserve and retired in the IDF, Mossad, Shin Bet, and police to ensure Israel's national security interests. And myself, I'm the head of the institute and an Iran researcher and a Farsi speaker.
So you have a better understanding of this war than many other people. So all of West is right now wondering, where is this going? What does Israel want in this conflict?
Right, so I think Israel felt as if it was with its back against the wall and it had no other choice but to act. Remember, Iran was given every opportunity for negotiations and they fudged it and they rain-checked. And Israel saw, according to the political and military echelon, how Iran is planning to break out to nuclear weapons. Now, I don't need to tell you just how severe of a threat this is, not just to Israel, but to the Middle East and the entire world. And, well, according to the IAEA and multiple intelligence agencies around the world, Iran already enriched sufficient amount of 60% enriched uranium in order to manufacture a whole host of nuclear weapons. And so Israel felt that it had no other choice. It could wait no longer, and time has run out. And so this, for me, a success, if we're talking about KPIs, so a success rate here would be a total and complete wipeout of the nuclear program and the ballistic missile project. We already saw what kind of damage it wreaks around Israel, the ballistic missiles landing from Iran, the terrible, terrible damage and loss of human lives. So I think there is no campaign is more just than this one to prevent a danger.
Yes, this is also has been described as a window of opportunity for Israel with the air defenses being taken out in Iran. But what does happen? What happens? What will happen after the nuclear program is no more? Does Israel want a regime change, or what evolution does Israel want to see in Iran?
I think Israel seeks first and foremost the destruction of the nuclear program and the ballistic missile project. And we can see Israel striking increasingly the symbols of the regime, whether it be the TV station that propagated not just disinformation, but incitement against Israel, the headquarters of the Quds Force and the IRGC. But as far as regime change goes, it's really up to the Iranian people to decide. Israel can only create the groundwork or pave the path for the Iranian people, but it's ultimately their choice. We can see, however, some signs that there are cracks in the Iranian fortress. We can see how the regime is stressed, and there are a number of ways, including disinformation and AI-generated images of trucks loaded with missiles, or pilots enacting the eject button and parachuting deserting their planes, which never happened. And so, and we can see some signs of dissent among the Iranian people in a way that makes the regime really panic. So we'll see what happens, but it's really up to the Iranian people to decide.
The Iranian propaganda machine has also hit Sweden. It was the cause of the terrorist attack in Brussels, where 2 Swedes were killed a couple of years ago. And this has, of course, led to a big shift in the Iranian propaganda, first towards Israel with the Hamas war, and now to what you're just describing. If there was to be a regime change in Iran, Iran has never been a democracy. The Shah was dethroned in 1979. There are royalists, there are people who want a democracy, there are Islamist groups, there are communists. The opposition in Iran is very, very diverse. How do you see a democratic Iran coming about?
Right. So as you said, there is no coherent opposition in Iran. It is composed of a whole assortment of pressure groups and ethnic groups, whether it be the bazaar merchants and intellectuals and communists and regime loyalists and monarchists. But as a whole, we can see the Iranian people starting to rise and protest. We can see how there are cries and chants in Tehran, death to the dictator. It is not still a massive critical mass of protest that will enable a regime change, but there is an interesting process going on. And now we have to wait and see what kind of process it leads to. Ultimately, it's up to the Iranian people to decide.
In what way is Israel assisting in a democratic transition?
It doesn't. I don't think this is the goal here. I think Israel made a very clear-cut goal to wipe out the nuclear project and the ballistic missile project. But if the weakening of the regime, and the regime is certainly weakening right now, and is certainly under panic right now, if the regime if the regime shows signs of weakness, then the people can choose to rise and get out to the streets. But I wouldn't profess to do it for them. It's ultimately the Iranian people's decision. What Israel intends to do here is to remove a clear and present threat to the world peace, the capability to manufacture up to 9 nuclear weapons within a month, and giving the world's most dangerous regime the most lethal weapons. That is absolutely has to be prevented for the sake of Israel and for the sake of Europe. Iranian ballistic missiles can reach already to Eastern Europe, and we can see how Iran threatens both Israel and the West. And so we can definitely be sure that once Israel is done, the world is a safer place.
There have been many wars in the Middle East in the last couple of years. Each one tend to change the power dynamic of the Middle East in a significant way. So what consequences do you see in the region coming from this war?
So it has to be stressed. This is not a forever war, nor boots on the ground, nor anything close to what we've seen in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Iranian regime has chosen to develop nuclear weapons to destroy Israel and to threaten the free world. And so this specific danger has to be removed. I think this is the ultimate pinnacle, if you will, of this war, to remove a clear and present threat. And I'm reminding you, Iran has started the war. Iran launched an all-out assault against Israel on October 7 via its proxy Hamas, later via its other proxies Hezbollah and the Houthis. And so really, this war was imposed on Israel. But once imposed, Israel has chosen to remove a clear and present threat of the world and make the world a safer place. And there are multiple scenarios, but if to judge by the open declarations of Saudi officials before October 7, there is definitely a pathway to peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia. There's certainly been normalized, this whole conversation. And if to judge by the declarations of Saudi officials, they are terrified by the notion of an Iranian nuclear bomb. And removing this threat can also pave the path for Israel-Saudi peace, to new trade routes around the Middle East, IMEC, the India, Middle East, Europe corridor, all these things that we can reap the fruits of this activity, the military activity in Iran, in the day after.
Iran is a hub for the Islamist terrorist movements in the Middle East, but also in the world. You have in Syria the HTS groups trained together with other groups in Afghanistan. You have the Houthis being supplied with rockets from Iran, preventing Western trade from going up through the Suez Canal. At the same time, we have since January, we've seen ships with rocket propellants being transported from China up to Iran for the Iranian ballistic missile program. We also see Chinese air support coming into Iran now. So we also see very, very strong words coming out of Russia regarding this war. So what global consequences do you see coming out of this?
Look, I would carefully estimate that neither China nor Russia will die on this hill. Iran has supplied Russia with crucial assistance in the war in Ukraine, with ballistic missiles and drones. And one has to say Europe is a much less safer place because of Iran. Iran has been an active actor in the war in Ukraine, supplying Russia. There are Iranian drones and missiles right now landing on Ukrainian citizens across Ukraine. And China has been supporting the regime by buying some 90% of its oil in a cheap price. But I would not go as far as to assume that they would risk their national security interests on behalf of the Iranian regime. It is a great tool to use, the Iranian regime, in the hands of China and Russia. But once exhausted, I don't believe that they would risk their vital interests for it. They have enough concerns. Russia is bogged down in Ukraine, and China is not seeking to risk it. I'm sorry. Sorry, there's probably an alarm. 1 second. Okay, there should be an alert in the coming minutes, but if you could cut my answer just to finish it up, is that okay? I apologize.
Absolutely. What global consequences do you see?
Now, if you want to see, I don't see it from outside. I don't hear it from outside just yet, but as you can see, this is the map that right now is all over Israel, where the siren is. Let me just hear. Yeah, I should probably get going soon. I have to go. I'm sorry. I have to go.
Okay. I'll speak to you again. Thank you for joining us again. If you want, do you want to elaborate on what just happened?
Right. So Iran just attacked Israel with yet another barrage of ballistic missiles. We saw direct hits in Haifa and in southern Israel, and we all huddled to the shelter. There you have several minutes to get cover, and then a minute and a half before the actual projected impact, you have an actual siren. So people get a sufficient amount of time in order to evacuate, and you have to stay in the safe shelter until you get an order from the Home Front Command to leave. There are people who ran, women, children, who are all over Israel right now, millions of Israelis who ran to the shelter, and including my family and everyone were in the office building where I am. So it's not an easy situation, especially when civilians are involved.
As a Westerner, as a Swede, this is very, very hard to understand and to relate to. How much of sort of daily life is this as for an Israeli?
Look, I mean, Iran is firing indiscriminately toward civilian population, and we can all feel it in Israel. We go to the shelter several times a night, sometimes sleep maybe 2 hours a night sometimes, because there is just too many sirens, and you get the alert on your phone, and you know that you need to get the kids and call everyone who needs help, maybe old people who need to use an elevator, and then other people take the stairs. It's not easy. There are people who are showing resilience. I have to say, Israelis are well trained, and they are showing resilience, and they go to the shelter and they follow instruction and save lives. But it's not a normal situation in any way, shape, or form. And you're right. I mean, in Europe, this whole situation is unheard of, except Ukraine, of course. At least since World War II, you guys didn't have anything like that. And we are paying the price for years of Iranian force buildup and a whole master plan to attack Israel. And very luckily, Israel decided to embark on this mission. We were a surprise attack on October 7, and that triggered a chain reaction. But methodically, stone after stone, the domino effect is played, and it can be unnerving. And but you can see how Israel methodically is taking out Iran's proxies and Hamas, Hezbollah, and others, and now Iran itself. And as a security expert, for me, this is if you can call it an exciting time, I don't know, but it's certainly a time with a lot of action. But for the everyday civilians, you can see buildings being collapsed and buildings being shattered and buildings collapsing, and private homes were targeted. It's certainly unnerving for a lot of Israelis.
Again, we saw shipping vessels leaving China, going to Iran with propellants for rockets. How many rockets does Iran have? For how long can they go on like this?
So open source information says that Iran had, before the war, somewhere around 2,000 ballistic missiles that can reach all the way to Israel. That would be roughly 1,500 kilometers to 2,000 kilometers. I'm reminding you, this range also covers Romania, Bulgaria, Eastern Europe. And Israel has embarked on this war knowing that Iran will retaliate, knowing that, retaliate is kind of a funny word because Iran launched an all-out assault on Israel on October 7 and ever since with all of its regional proxies. But Israel preempted, and he knew that the retaliation from Iran will be coming. And the IDF right now has attained aerial supremacy in the skies of Iran. Imagine that. They used to doubt Israel's very capability to reach all the way to Iran, 2,000 kilometers. And now the IDF announced aerial supremacy. That means that drones and fighter jets of the Israeli Air Force are flying almost undisturbed in the skies of Iran. All the air defense systems are down, the radars are down. And so right now, a lot of the missile launchers are also targeted. And so it it significantly impacts Iran's launching capabilities. Based on, logic conclusion, I would assume that they have a few more hundreds of missiles left, but the majority of the launchers are also already taken down. And I hope Israel continues to deny them these capabilities.
The entire goal of this operation is to wipe out Iran's capability to build nuclear weapons. How fast would Iran have been able to arm these 2,000 ballistic missiles that you're talking about, and what would that have meant for the world?
So we were already in the 11th hour, I have to tell you. Israel has launched this a preemptive attack, and by that is making not only the Middle East but also Europe a safer place, because as you can imagine, 2,000 ballistic missiles armed with nuclear weapons is not a good thing for the world's security. And so there has been, I'm imagining, intelligence received in Israel, according to public comments by Netanyahu and the IDF, that Iran has decided to break out to nuclear weapons. There have been experiments, as the IDF said, in labs already testing weaponization, and Iran has already amassed a sufficient enough amount of 60% enriched uranium for 9 atomic bombs if decided to break out to 90% weapon grade uranium. That means that's according to the IAEA. And the same International Atomic Energy Agency has just announced a day before Israel's preemptive attack that Iran has violated literally all of its international obligations for the first time in 20 years, that it's making such an announcement. Iran, as you know, is a signatory to the NPT, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and you can only imagine what happens when you marry a radical theocratic regime that openly threatens to destroy Israel and challenges Europe and the West with nuclear weapons. So obviously, I think the world today is a safer place. And what I want Israel to do is to continue pounding Iran's nuclear weapons program and ballistic missiles program until the threat is removed. And from there on, it's the Iranians' people moment to decide.
Before the bomb alarm went off, we discussed about global consequences of this conflict. Iran, China, and Russia are described by all Western intelligence services as the major threats. We see close collaboration between all of them. We see China supplying Iran with rocket propellants. And we also see Chinese air support coming into Iran now during the conflict. Russia is also very absolute in its communication around Iran and its threats about what they would do if Iran was sort of invaded also by the US. What global consequences do you see from this conflict?
Well, I think the global balance of power is now shifting toward the West and away from Russia, China, and Iran, and it is thanks to Israel's actions. Remember, Iran has been developing actively a military nuclear program and has amassed thousands of ballistic missiles that can reach the heart of Israel, but also the heart of Europe. And I think by so doing, the West is now a safer place. And You guys saw how the very dangerous triangle between Russia, China, and Iran has led to this incredible danger. And now this whole the removal of the threat is crucial not just for Israel but also for Europe, because as you can see, Russia and China are losing a major ally right now, and this shifting balance of power is going to bear positive ramifications, I hope, elsewhere as well, in Europe, in Southeast Asia. And you have to remember, Iran has developed this whole array of terrorism around the world. It tried to carry out terrorist attacks, not just in Israel, but also in Denmark, France, even attempted to assassinate President Trump twice. Has sleeper cells all over Europe. And what we can see, how Israel is methodically, eroding the capabilities of this regime, making the world a safer place. You guys in Sweden felt it, joining NATO because of the threat emanating out of Russia. And now a major Russian ally, which is Iran, is being methodically eroded. Look, my ancestors partly come from Iran, from Iranian Kurdistan. We don't have any reservations with the Iranian people. I know many of them are good people, and they would like to be in peace with Israel. I personally appreciate and admire their millennia-long history. I studied the language Farsi and their history because this is such a rich a country with diverse and rich history. So this is not about the people, I assume. This is about the Iranian regime, the Islamic Revolution that is threatening the stability and peace in the Middle East and around the world and in Europe. And by so doing, again, Israel is making the world a safer place, removing a clear and present nuclear threat on the part of Iran.
Yes, you have a very unique understanding of what's going on in Iran, thanks to your expertise. You, IDSF, have also looked at social media and the reactions inside of Iran since this conflict started. We will talk about this in length another time, but could you just please explain to me a bit about what you are seeing?
Right. So what we've been able to identify is that the Iranian regime is in full-on panic mode, and that expresses itself in a number of ways. And really, the full research exclusive to our institute will be revealed at a later stage. But I can just give you this this glimpse, because we can see how the Iranian regime is trying to paint business as usual with a number of ways, including disinformation and sort of major achievements in Israel that they don't really have, arrest of Mossad agents and downing of Israeli fighter jets that there is no evidence for that. And the Iranian people themselves are starting to feel the weakness and the level of vulnerability of the regime. You already see on social media, TikTok, X, you can already see citizens chanting out death to the dictator. That already was the case before the Israeli preemptive attack, but it seems like the stability of the regime is gradually eroding. I don't know to tell you the regime will fall, but I can tell you that there are increased signs for panic and on the part of the regime, and that the Iranian people are feeling it and they're sensing it. And so we'll have to see what happens. But if, for example, on X, there are 50% more hashtags death to the dictator or woman revolution freedom, then you can see that gradually it is more and more normalized and legitimized for people to chant out death to the dictator or really protest the fact that they have no electricity or a shortage of bread loaves. All of these things could accumulate to a critical mass of mass protest movement. It's still very early on to judge, but certainly our findings are extremely interesting, and I'm looking forward to share them.
So rumblings in the Iranian people. Thank you very much, Or Yissachar. I look forward to more and deeper information about this from IDSF. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Keep there in Sweden.